You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. How you doing? Today's Tuesday, June 28th, 2022. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer and NX Networks. Grace Hobbs. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Good evening. How you doing? Tonight, we welcome very special guests, and I am excited. Robert Grant is with us. He's here for the first time, and I'm going to say it's about time. A lot of conversation going to go down tonight, centered around the concealed codes. That's right. Tomorrow night, Ralph Blumenthal of the New York Times is with us. He is back. And then Thursday night's another Fader night with open lines all night long. All right. Whew, man. So excited. I mean, you know, and all day today, I had so much stuff to do and a million phone calls and work and writing and things, you know, setting up the future and doing all of that and getting ready for today's show. And I was just snappy and happy, you know, all day long. It's, I'm in one of those moods. Plus, I got parts shipped to me today for a guitar that I'm working on right now. And everything fits. And you know what? That'll put you in a good mood too. So, yeah, it's going to be a while before you guys see this guitar. It's going to take a lot of work, but it's pretty special. And I'm excited about that. You know, with the guest over at the house this weekend, everybody wants to see the bunker. And probably 6, 7, 8 friends that were over had never seen the bunker. So they, you know, you got to do it. And they want to see the bunker. I want to show them the guitar that I'm working on now. It's really funny. I'm so proud of it. But anyway, we've got a lot to get through tonight, and lots of breaking news. Things are happening around the world. So we'll get to all of that. I want to remind everybody that please visit our sponsors on this show. This is what keeps us on the air and keeps this thing moving along. And all of our sponsors are listed below. They're also over on our website. And please visit jimmychurchradio.com. And one of the great things about our sponsors here, everything I use, you know, and I'm very picky on who comes into the circle of trust. I'm very, very picky about that. And I was talking to, I saw Christina's in the chat room. I was talking to Christina earlier today. She was helping me with some audio stuff. And I told her, I said, you know, I have to say no. I have to say no a lot to different sponsors. And I get it that they, you know, that this is a cool show and it's got a big audience and a big reach and everything. But that doesn't mean you get to be a sponsor on this show. That's not how it works. It's just not. So please visit our sponsors. They're here because of the Fadernauts, and it's what keeps us going here. So visit all of our sponsors. The links are below. Let's get straight to the breaking news. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio and Facebook and YouTube and all of that stuff. is over on our website and throughout social media. But please follow, like, and subscribe. All right. All right. Twitter's easy, at JChurch Radio. And go check out my Instagram. My Instagram's pretty cool. It's music. That's it. It's my guitar world. But if you want to go check it out, it's pretty cool. At Jimmy Church Radio over on Instagram. Let's get to the breaking news. Big news today. Russia. Russia. Oh, before I get to Russia, I have been looking at the images and the videos of the lights in the sky over the ocean down near San Diego that have been seen north of San Diego all the way down into Mexico. And I think they're going on again tonight, but the San Diego Police Department is saying that they're flares. And I guess the lifeguard military flares, and the lifeguards sitting out there are saying that they're military flares. But the military says, no, they are not. We're not practicing any military exercises out there. So I don't know what's going on. And some of the video that I have seen looks a lot closer. Like these, are they possibly moving, or are they going on in two different places at the same time? Because the shots down in Mexico look just as close and as compelling as the ones taken up in San Diego. So maybe military flares, and they are orange, and I get that. But pretty strange that the military is denying when everybody out there is panicking, right? It's pretty interesting. So no conclusions yet, but I am keeping my eye on things. All right, back to Russia. Russia has fined Twitch, Pinterest, Airbnb, and UPS for refusing to store personal data collected from Russian users on servers where the Russian government could have access to the private information. The tech companies were fined 2 million rubles, and UPS was fined 1 million rubles. At current exchange rates, that means Twitch, Pinterest, and Airbnb have been fined approximately $37,000 each. And UPS has been fined a little over $18,000. All of the companies have refused to give Russia any information on Russian citizens. Very interesting. Well, the FBI in the news. The FBI wrote to its Internet Crime Complaint Center today that it has received multiple complaints of people using stolen information and deep-faked video. That's right. To apply to remote tech jobs. Deep fakes. You knew this stuff was going to start happening. According to the FBI's announcement, more companies have been reporting people applying to jobs using video, images, or recordings that are manipulated to look and sound like somebody else. These fakers are also using personal identifiable information from other people's stolen identities to apply to jobs at IT programming, database, and software firms. The report noted that many of these open positions had access to sensitive customer or employee data, as well as financial and proprietary company info, implying the imposters could have a desire to steal sensitive information as well as cash a fraudulent paycheck. Very interesting. Well, now check this out, Fadernauts. Attention, Fadernauts. You don't need an astronomy degree to become a Jovian vortex hunter. In fact, scientists need your help, and the University of Minnesota Twin Cities has made it simple to gain access to thousands of images taken from NASA's Juno spacecraft. You can then sift through the images to help researchers classify Jupiter's atmospheric conditions. It's all part of a new citizen science project led by the university. All you need is access to the internet and the time to go through a simple training. The program is even enable the pros to write an algorithm that can speed up future identification of Jupiter's atmospheric features. To start hunting Jovian vortices, no experience needed. All you got to do is go to zooniverse.org, ZOONIVERSE.org today. Go and do it. I did today, actually. Okay? All right, zooniverse.org. Martian rock samples collected by NASA's Curiosity Mars rover show signs of key ingredients for life as we know it right here on Earth. The Curiosity rover drilled samples from Gale Crater and the site of ancient lakes on Mars. Using 3 samples, scientists were able for the first time to measure the total amount of organic carbon in Martian rocks. Organic carbon, which is carbon bound to a hydrogen atom, is a prerequisite for organic molecules created and used by all known forms of life. This is big news. Now, in addition to organic carbon, the researchers identified other signs suggesting Gale Crater may have once supported life, including the presence of chemical energy sources and chemical compounds such as oxygen, nitrogen, and sulfur, and low acidity. It's big news. Yep. E.T.'s going to be announced from Mars first. You watch. We're not alone in the universe. You watch. We're getting there. Now, this next story, this news broke today, and I'm going to tell you the accompanying image. I don't have it here. Somebody's going to pop it up in Twitter in just a second. But the image is one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in my life. That's because a near perfectly mummified 30,000-year-old baby woolly mammoth has been unearthed from Canadian permafrost by a miner in the Klondike region's gold fields. The stunningly preserved baby, which measured 4.5 feet long and still had much of its hair and skin intact, was described by officials as the most complete mummified mammoth found ever in North America. Now, as the discovery was made in Eureka Creek, on the land of the First Nation in Canada's Yukon, the animal has been named Nuncho-Ga, or big baby animal in the Han language. The photograph looks like this baby woolly mammoth died yesterday. It's an incredible image. Incredible. Fossils. Now, here we go. This is tipping things in the other direction very quickly, because fossils of human ancestors from South African cave are 3.4 million to 3.6 million years old, making them 1 million years older than previously suspected and shaking up the way researchers understand human origins and evolution. The new date makes the Serfontein cave fossils older than the famed Lucy fossil from Ethiopia. Found in 1979, Lucy represented the species Australopithecus and lived 3.2 million years ago. A new study detailing the findings was published Monday in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. I read through the entire paper, and you've got to go and check it out. Let's get the show cracking on this day in history. I don't do sports on this show, but I'll do this because I saw it live. 1997, Mike Tyson bites Evander Holyfield's ear. In the third round of their heavyweight match, the attack led to his disqualification from the match and suspension from boxing. I was with Doug Aldrich that night, and we had left Sherman Oaks, came over the hill to Hollywood to Chris Frazier's house, the drummer, to watch this fight live. And we were all excited, and we all watched that together. Like I said, I don't do sports, but I'll do that. Fader fact. In 1846, Joseph Leidy was the first person to solve a crime using a microscope. That's right. A farmer claimed the blood on his shirt was chicken blood. And Joseph said it wasn't and proved it. And then the farmer confessed to murder. And that is your fate or fact. Man, we've come a long way since 1846, haven't we? Tonight, very special guest finally on this program. Robert Grant is with us for the first time. We've got a lot to discuss tonight. Stay right there. He's going to be with us at the bottom of the hour. And then tomorrow night, Ralph Blumenthal is going to be with us from the New York Times. And then Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. All right, now it's time for me to hit this River Moon coffee. Oh, Robert's in the green room. Hello, Robert. Robert just stopped by. All right, let me hit this River Moon coffee. rivermoonwellness.com. And this coffee's got my picture on the bag. And when you order it and you get it, you will see it's the best coffee in the world. And you know it's mine because my mug is right there. Faded Black Blend. All right. One of my favorite questions, and I'm glad that Robert's in the green room because he can nod his head right now and say, yeah, this actually happened. Over the weekend, I was over at Disclosure Fest, and Robert and I had a chance to sit down on stage and just talk. And as we went through the conversation, I had said to Robert and to the audience there that one of my favorite questions to ask a guest is, what is consciousness? And this is a big audience, and I get that, and I understand that. But this audience has heard me ask that question hundreds of times. I've done thousands of interviews, thousands of shows, and you get a different answer every time. And so why do I ask this question? Well, I do it for a lot of reasons. And let me explain. Let me put it to you this way. I don't believe that anybody knows. And the more that I ask the question, the more that I learn personally. And the answers tend to overlap. And you've got the two extremes. You've got a bell curve, and you got the two extremes. But they tend to overlap, and eventually they just overlap to the other extreme on the other side. And everything is unknown. And that's the strange thing for me. Now, I do look at it like this. The way that Brian Greene has presented this, because physicists don't want to talk about this, scientists don't want to talk about this, any of the hard sciences don't want to. It's a challenging question. And every scientist and everybody that's dealing with chemicals and chemistry and mathematics, they know that they are able to ponder the significance of the very small to the very large. They are able to think about these things, and not only the universe, but chemistry and atoms and sizes and things. And if they are able to sit and think and ask questions and ponder this stuff, what's allowing that to happen? What's allowing them to laugh, to cry, to feel emotions, right? To dream? What is consciousness? So they know that they have the ability to do these things. They just don't know why. And to me, it comes down to measurement. And I understand that, where a physicist or a scientist, where measurement is so important to be able to measure these things and go into a laboratory setting and repeat and measure and repeat and verify. I get that. And they can't do that with consciousness. So therefore, they just don't want to discuss it because it's a zone that they don't have any answers for. That being said, Brian Greene, great physicist, read all his books. Brian Greene says this, and he's one of the very few physicists that will go into this area. Most will just say, I don't want to talk about it. But he says that he believes that there could be a little piece of consciousness in all particles, just a little bit. But when you get the particles together and you get, a few pounds of this gray goo between your ears, you get an accumulation of those little pieces of consciousness, and boom, there you go. Well, I'm sort of cool with that. And I'm cool with that for a couple of reasons. All right. Have you ever yelled at your car? Have you ever kicked your car? Right. And you come out, you're late for work. You come out, you jump in your car, you're in your driveway, and it doesn't start. Started the day before. It's not starting now. Is that because there's an accumulation of consciousness in the particles of the car? Maybe. So don't yell at your car. Don't take chances. Don't kick it. Be nice to your car. Talk to it. Talk to everything. And here's the other thing. Just recently, and I'm going to talk to Robert about this when he joins us in a few minutes. Last week, there was a Google engineer that got put on suspension because he went to the Google executives and said, "Hey, our AI is sentient." And there was a lot of pushback on this, to the point where he got suspended from work. I don't know if he's still employed yet, but I read through some of the conversations with this AI, and it was very interesting how the AI talked about itself, saying us and humans and us. Very strange, right? Okay. But is it possible that the more sophisticated that these chipsets are getting to, where now we have an iPhone does 3.3 trillion calculations per second, and how many transistors now are on a chipset, and that expands out into the rest of the circuit, right? It's more complicated. But each one of those transistors is particles and atoms accumulated. So is it possible that consciousness isn't because of the AI and because of the software, that naturally consciousness is being accumulated in electronic devices? And the more complicated, the more rich that we make them, and the more millions of transistors are added every single time one is developed, and you add another core to it. Is that possible? Is the cause of this sudden sentient AI? Now, Ray Kurzweil has put a couple of dates. It's been pushed back a little bit. He had 2018, 2022, 2031, 2036. That these were the dates of singularity, and at that point, AI was going to be smarter than us. It's the consciousness side. It's not the AI side. We're going to get there. But it's the sentient consciousness side of things that we need to be aware of. So it just may be that consciousness is everywhere, and it's an accumulation of mass. And it's very interesting to me. Now, the last part that I want to leave you with in this thought process of mine is that's fine. But then, is the soul a byproduct of consciousness? Are they one and the same thing? Are they two separate things? But then, what happens after our meat suits stop working? Where does that go? I'll talk to Robert Grant about this tonight. He is with us, and I'm going to take a quick break right here. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Robert Grant. Tomorrow night from the New York Times, Ralph Blumenthal is here. Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. On the Game Changer and UnX Networks, Ray's Hobbs. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Hello, Fadernauts. Jimmy Church here. You've seen me with my thunderstorm. Now you can purify the air in your home and get healthy, clean, fresh-smelling air and eliminate odors just like I do right here in the bunker. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm uses oxy technology that naturally sends out O3 molecules into the air, which seek out odors and air pollutants in your home and destroys them. It's called a thunderstorm because it purifies the air just like after a thunderstorm. And right now, you can save $200 on an Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack for whole home protection. With this special offer, you're getting 3 units for under $200. Seriously. Go to EdenPureDeals.com and use Fader3. Shipping is free and it's easy. Just scroll down. You'll see my name right there, Jimmy Church. Click on it and get your deal today. That's EdenPureDeals.com.
Do you have an interest in the paranormal? Then you'll love the UnXNetwork.com. The X is your streaming audio and video for everything supernatural, strange, and mysterious, like UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, and so much more. From hosts like Jimmy Church, Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, and Christina Gomez. Visit the UnXNetwork.com show page for a complete list of all the paranormal programs you'll find on the X. Be sure to follow us on Twitter for updates at KUNXDB. Follow our Facebook group, UnX Network. Find the podcast on Spotify, iHeart, Audible, and Apple Podcast. It's time.
It's new.
It's the X.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Okay, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Robert Grant is with us, joining us for the first time. Tonight, we're going to talk numbers. We are. So get ready. There will be a pop quiz later on. We're going to talk about some things, including the concealed codes that surround us every day. He's a successful entrepreneur, best-selling author of PHILOMATH, prolific inventor, founder of several corporation enterprises. Additionally, he's also an artist, a sculptor. He's a music theorist, a musician, and author of several research and patent publications spanning biology, DNA, I can't even say that word, number theory, geometry, and physics. He is the founder, chairman, and managing partner of Strathspey Crown LLC, a growth equity holding company based in Newport Beach, California, with a broad portfolio of company and asset holdings spanning healthcare, clean energy, social media, and financial technologies. He's also served as the founding CEO of AccessElite Corporation from April 2017 until July 2018, and has served as the founding CEO of ALPHAEON Corporation from February 2013 through 2016. He's also the chairman and CEO of several other companies. We'll get into some of that tonight. His website, of course, is robertedwardgrant.com. The links are throughout social media, over on our website, and in the description box below. I would like to welcome, for the first time, to Fade to Black, Robert Grant.
Hey, Jimmy, how you doing?
Man, you look better today than you did over the weekend.
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to let that go right there. But it's good to have you on the show, and
good to be here.
Yeah, and you get the first-time guest disclaimer. Now, and this is what's strange about the first-time guest disclaimer, and think about what we did this weekend. But here it is, word for word. Robert, it's just you and I sitting on my couch, having a conversation as friends. And where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. There you go. But we already did it, right?
We did it. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. And I had been looking forward to that for a very long time. And I've been following you for many years. And I'm almost a little intimidated. And let me tell you why. And we sort of talked about it this weekend, which is throughout my education, I did fine in English. I did great. Drafting and drawing and world history, biology, fine. Straight A's. No problem. Math and I...
was your favorite, right? It was your favorite.
Math and I just didn't get along. And I went through the normal stages of math early on, plus and minus, right? Division, whatever. But once I got into algebra and geometry, I just fell apart. And I was always waiting for the magic thing to click in my brain where I go, okay, I get it. All right, okay, I've got this figured out. I never did, and you did. Were you always a numbers person from a kid moving forward?
I always liked numbers, but I have to say, it wasn't until I learned several other languages. Right? So one of the first things that I had the opportunity to do, I guess, after I graduated from high school was I went to Korea for 2 years, and I got to learn the Korean language. And when I learned the Korean language, it was really fascinating for me because I figured out that the language is backwards. So if we sometimes wonder why certain people from certain cultures and countries think differently than us, it's also because their syntax is entirely different. In our English language, it's subject, object, verb, right? Or subject, verb, object, excuse me. And with Korean language, it's subject, object, verb. So everything's backwards. It seems like totally backwards. So instead of saying something like, I am going to the store, the way you would say it in Korean is, I to the store going am. So everything's backwards, right? So I noticed, though, in learning that, and then when I learned the Japanese language as well, that there was sort of this process and pattern to learning it. And then I realized that there was a pattern to learning all languages. So I learned a pattern for learning languages, and I learned 8 languages in the process. So I learned Korean, Japanese, Mandarin Chinese, French, German, Spanish, and Hebrew. And of course, I spoke English already. And so there's a thing that if you're good at music and you like mathematics, then you'll learn languages very quickly. I knew that all along because people always said that. But what was interesting is when I started looking at mathematics as a language, that changed everything for me because it went from a nameless, faceless sort of, objective, not subjective at all, at least I thought.
Right.
Sort of, the queen of the sciences, the one science that's entirely objective, to something that was actually a form of communication with the universe. And when I realized it was a form of communication with the universe and that there's actually a syntax to that communication, that there's a message that comes along with that communication, it brought math to life for me. So it became so much easier to learn. And I think that's what's happening right now in the world. People are starting to realize that math is the language of the universe. And as they learn it, then they're starting to get a new relationship with mathematics altogether. And also in schools, we never learned mathematics except for in one geometry class that we had, and we stopped studying geometry after 10th grade. You don't do any geometry after that. Even though Greek mathematicians and philosophers studied geometry their entire lifetimes, right? We thought it was good enough to get 9 months of it and be done with it, right? What actually geometry does is it takes that language and makes it visual. And when you can actually put in the context of that visualization, then everything takes on a whole new meaning and it starts to actually invade your heart. So people that hated math in junior high school and in high school are now falling in love with math. I guess maybe it's that old adage, whatever you could fall in love with, you could also hate. Whatever you could hate, you could also fall in love with. So now people that hated math are starting to fall in love with math. And it's been fun to help to have people get a whole new relationship with math by seeing it differently. Just flipping their perspective on what math is changes everything.
All right, so you're suggesting that even somebody, an old guy like me, it's never too late.
There's still hope, Jimmy. There's still
hope. There's still hope. Well, when I read every book on physics that I can get my hands on, and that doesn't make anybody a physicist. You are reading the interpretation of a physicist who is putting it into words so we can digest it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't make me a physicist, but I do find myself learning and faking my way through it to the point where I think I've got a basic grasp on some of these concepts. But does that mean I'm suddenly going to write algorithms out?
That means you've learned the language of physics.
Right.
You can speak it, you can, communicate within it. And it's the same thing with mathematics. There's only a few things you actually have to learn. What I realized is that to learn a language, most people learn language like the Rosetta system, and they end up learning a lot of nouns. So they'll learn a ton of nouns. And even in Korea, when I lived there, or Japan or China or wherever, the people that were studying English as a second language, they would study so many words, but they couldn't speak any sentences. So what I decided was, let me get proficient at speaking the sentences. And the nice thing is because English is pretty well understood from a noun perspective around the world. If I don't know a word, I could just throw that word in that language in their accent. So in Japanese, I could say something like, oh, what's computer? I would be saying something in Japanese. And then all of a sudden I would say, computer, right? And that works just fine. People could understand that. Oh, computer desu. Yeah, it's like, that's a computer. So you could do the same thing with mathematics. I learned that in a language, if you knew 2,000 verbs, you could be proficient in that language.
That's about 1950, too many for me.
Yeah, but there's a way to take that and transpose it to mathematics. You don't have to learn so much of math to actually become very proficient at the language of math. And now that's what I teach.
One of the things I didn't want to jump into ET and focus on that tonight, but what you just said, and it reminds me of what we talked about earlier this week, is that mathematics has to be the language of the universe, right? But I have a few concerns with that. In that if ET shows up here and starts talking to us and we present them with some math, they may have a reaction with, well, you know what? that was a long time ago for us. We've moved on, right? It's not the way that we do things now. Is there a possibility of evolving past mathematics and then into something else? Or is it just something that has to be accepted? And if it is accepted universally, then what about 0 through 9? Right? Is our version of mathematics going to be something that will be understood?
Okay, so that's a pretty deep question. First of all, you probably remember Carl Sagan, right?
Yep.
So Carl Sagan was involved in the Voyager space program when they put Voyager out into space, and now it's exited out of our solar system. It's out somewhere in the Kuiper Belt. Well, there's only a few things they put on the Voyager spacecraft. There's a picture of a man and a woman, right? And also a picture of the space. Exactly. It's kind of like Vitruvian Man, but it's a little bit different, right? But it is kind of like that. They put one number on there. There's no real, like, a lot of language and stuff to speak about. Carl Sagan decided that one number should be on there, and that if there was one universal language, it would be mathematics. And that he felt fundamentally that our numbering system, our base 10 system, is fundamental to the universe. And the dimensionless mathematical constants like pi, right? Like the Euler number, like, the golden ratio. These are all dimensionless. You talked about measurements before. Actually, measurements only mean something with the context of comparison to something else. It's all about ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the one number that he put on there is something that is referred to as the electron coupling constant. Now, you might know this from your physics study. It's also known as the fine structure constant. And it's a value that is 1 over 137. Now, why is that number important? Because it happens to be the exact threshold or the mirror between when light is going to either be reflected or absorbed. So what that means is if you looked at an electron going around a proton, right? The moment that you excite it with energy, either the electron is going to jump into a outer shell, right? It's going to go take the energy, absorb it, and jump into an outer shell, right? Or it's going to stay in its same shell, electron shell position, and it's actually going to reflect a photon off of it. That separation, that threshold of energy that will determine that outcome will be based on the ratio of 1 over 137. And that is exactly what was put onto the Voyager spacecraft, because that's the one bit of information that could tell, other life forms around the galaxy or outside of, even intergalactic space, that we understood the relationship between light and dark, that we understood the relationship of what determines a hydrogen atom's spectral lines of emission or its spectral lines of absorption. So the mathematics is the language that we have, some of the best minds in the world have applied to this and said, you know what? That's the one thing that we can say to everybody: we are intelligent life forms. We understand about the electron coupling constant. It's dimensionless. Did you know that?
Yes, I did. And here's the thing. That's fine, but they need to know what the symbol of 1 represents. They need to know what the symbol of 3 represents, right? So would you then once you get one step, I mean, it only takes one, everything can get resolved, right? If they understand that 1, and I guess you would put a single dot underneath it. Under 3, you would put 3 dots. And under the 7, you would put 7 dots. If they understood that, then language opens up, numbers open up, and then everything could be translated and communicated.
So now I'm excited because you're now stepping into an area where I think your mind is going to get blown.
Let's go.
Okay. What if the shapes of our numbering system that we think are arbitrary, chosen by the people that created the Arabic numeral system, what if those shapes are actually geometries just as split up fragments?
Keep going.
Okay. So for example, if I wanted to represent 2 and its mirror, the number 2 and its mirror, what would it be? What would its mirror be? So to take the mirror, you have to take the 1 over value, right? So the reciprocal value of 2. 1 over 2 equals what? 0.5, right? Now, 1 over 5 equals 0.2. Is it any coincidence that 2 and 5 are the exact same shape, just inverted and backwards from each other?
Interesting. Keep going.
Okay.
What about? I already feel smarter, by the way.
Okay. So what about 4?
Keep going.
Let me show you how genius this system is, because what's 1 over 4? That'd be 0.25, right?
Right.
But 2 plus 5 equals what?
7.
Okay. So now let's look at 4 and flip it upside down backwards, and it becomes a what? 7.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
Right. So then now let's look at the number 3, right? 6 and 9. So we now have 2 and 5 that are reciprocal values of each other,
right?
Showing this relationship. 4 and 7 are showing that same type of relationship as well, which, by the way, this is the binary math system. 1 doubles to 2, 2 doubles to 4, 4 doubles to 8, 8 doubles to 16, which is 7. 1 plus 6 equals 7. And then 32 is 5, because 3 plus 2 equals 5. When you reduce it down in a method called digital root mathematics, you get this pattern that's 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. So I just gave you 4 of those numbers now, which, by the way, that pattern is also produced in 1 over 7. It's the same number series, just transposed.
Now let's go back to 3.
So 3, right? So let's start with 6 and 9 first, because 3 is like a wild card. Okay. So 6 and 9, what does 6 and 9 do? Well, what's the opposite upside down backwards of 6? 9.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Now let's say we have 6, which also what if all these numbers are actually just associated with particle physics? So let's assume that we have vacuum, and the first vacuum, the space, is the number 1. It's shaped like a 1. It's like a mirror, right? It's just like a mirror. If we're going to draw a mirror, we draw a straight line like a mirror. Okay, then we have 2. All right. So what if 2 is positive electrical force? What if 7, it's mirrored complement, right? It's another complement of it, because 7 plus 2 equals 9. Everything has to complete at 9. Okay, that becomes negative electrical force, or dark electricity. Let's call it this way. Then we have 3, which is an electron. We have 4, which is a dark magnetism. 5 is magnetism. 6 is proton. 7 is, I already mentioned, is the dark electric effect. And everything will sum to 9 always. So this means that 3 has this shape that looks like kind of a W, right, on its side. Well, if we took 3 and we mirrored its symbology, right, and its shape, and we put 6 and 9, which is a proton and a neutron. 9 is a neutron. It's neutral. Acts like a 0. You have a proton and you have a neutron, and around it, you have a 3 that creates a double torus, the shape of a double torus. That shape of a double torus is the exact path of the electron. So if you looked at the way the electrons go, right, around Earth, it goes from the North Pole to the equator, then back around to the South Pole, and then back through, right? This is the number 3. This is the exact pathway of the electron. So, and wait a minute, 6 is a proton? How would we denote the spin of a proton? Maybe we draw it like this. And what about a neutron, which has an opposite spin, going the opposite direction, like a 9? Wait a minute. Are these numbers so arbitrary after all?
Yeah, they're not. And so that would almost indicate to me, back to what I was referencing before, that maybe math, ET could see in colors. Math could be colors. Math could be shapes.
People that have synesthesia, I have synesthesia. When I see numbers, I see colors.
Right.
Number 2 for me is orange, right? 6 is blue, right? I actually see colors when I see numbers. So it's a very different experience, and lots of people experience this. It's not just me. There's many people that have this thing called synesthesia. But the point is this, that what we consider as arbitrary is not at all arbitrary. It is a function of consciousness to organize itself in the shape of numbers. Numbers are just fragments of geometric forms. We look at the shape of an omega, for example. We talk about alpha, omega. Alpha is related to the numbers 1, 4, and 7. It's exactly the shape of the letter A. You can create 1s, 4s, and 7s off of the shape of a letter A. Omega is 2 and 5. Ever notice that? 2 and an upside down backwards 5 create the exact shape of omega, alpha, omega. All I'm saying to you is that there's a lot of evidence that would suggest that what we consider being entirely arbitrary on our base 10 numbering system, which, by the way, I think is incomplete, because I think that actually we have a base 12 numbering system that runs concurrent to it as well. And you can find it by looking at nodal points and nodal intersections in wave theory and music. And that's what I've done. I've written a book about that called PHILOMATH. And you can find this in this book, that we actually, for every 360 degrees, there are actually 432 positional points
and
for a base 12 system.
And I'm reacting the same as I did when we talked over the weekend to 432. I just react to that immediately. And I think you can see by what's going on behind me that I've got a little bit of reaction.
Battle of the bands going on there.
A little bit. And Susie, I just popped this up as you were saying that. This was her comment in the chat room, that math is music.
100%. Susie is a genius. She's right. And actually, you know, I consider it like this. It's like the left brain expression of music is mathematics. The right brain expression of music is what we listen to in music. But the central thesis that is right around the center of our brain is actually geometry. And geometry is the visual expression that we could experience mathematics, right, visually. And also, it's like the music that we can listen to with our eyes, for lack of a better term.
Right. And you mentioned Carl Sagan. We're going to hit a break here in 3 minutes. So let's back up on Carl Sagan for a moment, because yes, we got to talk Hollywood for just a minute. But if we go back to Close Encounters and the approach to this, where they were using computers and math and trying to figure out a way to communicate, that was all juxtaposed into color and music notes. And that's right. Not too far off the mark. And we've had so many years to consider that segment of the movie, but it has stood the test of time, hasn't it?
Absolutely. So I think that the entire universe is mathematics that gets expressed in the different forms that are appropriate to our senses, right? So the entire universe is math. The coherence of that mathematics is what we call geometry. The coherence of consciousness is the geometric aspect that we can see visually. But that way that gets expressed is musically for our ears. The way it's expressed for our taste buds is through the taste that we have of great food, right? All of these different senses are just different experiences of mathematics, because just like Pythagoras said, all is number. That quantification, that measurement that you said, that is true. The way we observe things is through measurement, but maybe that measurement really requires the context of ratio. In order for us to know what tastes good, we have to experience what tastes bad. In order for us to know what is pleasurable, we have to experience what's painful.
I was talking about that last night on the show, and I a little giggle with this, but it's the older that I get. If you go back to kung fu movies, right? Okay, the Harvest Pictures and Bruce Lee, and you always had the wise guy, the wise old man, right? Before you can go up, you must go down, right? Before you turn left, you must turn right.
It's like the David Carradine, right? It's
100% that. And as I get old, it's exactly true. I used to giggle at it when I was growing up. That's just funny. No, it's actually true, right? That's the way the universe works. There's no positive without a negative. And that's just it. It's just the way that it is. And you're not going to change it. And that certainly is universal, right?
That's right. And, in fact, one of the one number I left out of that grouping was the number 8. The number 8 is light. And what's interesting, the number 8 is light, and it's the infinity symbol also. Is this all just by coincidence? I don't know. Right? I don't think that it is. And I think that the universe, let's say that we're in a simulation of sorts. Mathematics would be the entire code that the whole thing is writ under, right? The whole thing would be based on that. I found a binary code inside of combinatorial mathematical analysis of DNA. Adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. DNA is what the whole life in the universe is built upon. And there's nothing in the universe that's not conscious. The entire universe is conscious. That's my belief. Because all of the information that we would have, I don't know if you saw this recently, but the University of Portsmouth just came out and said that they believe they're going to be able to prove through experimentation that information is the 5th state of matter. This only came out about a month ago.
Yeah, and Kip Thorne, it's a good segue. I've just got 15 seconds. Kip Thorne, Hawkins, a lot of physicists, when you get into black hole theory, have all said that the one constant that will survive a black hole is information. Information doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it accumulates on the surface in a 2-dimensional, creation, right? It's the surface of the black hole, according to Leonard Susskind, is 2-dimensional information, right? So that means then, is really the black hole just a giant screen projector?
Could be. And
it's a holographic universe.
I've read all of Suskind's work and his presentations, and believe it or not, I understand him. I really do. He communicates in such a way that I'm
a fan.
I'm a huge fan of Lenny. He's just amazing. All right, let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, the one and only Robert Grant, is with us. Now, it may seem complicated, but it's really not. We'll continue all of this when we get back right after this short break. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, BX.
2022 MUFON Symposium is in Denver, Colorado, July 7th through 10th, and it's on. If you can't make it to Denver, get the live stream. You can watch it live and anytime later. This year's theme is UFOs in the Spotlight. Our speaker lineup is incredible. Join Cheryl Jones, Peter Robbins, Michael Schratt, Kathleen Martin, Tom Reed, Paul Hynek, Peter Davenport, Dave Scott, Craig Campobasso, Donald Schmidt, Mark D'Antonio, and me, Ron James, for an exciting inside look at my new film. Newsflash, Congressman Tim Burchett has just confirmed that he will be making an exclusive live presentation at MUFON 2022. Tim is the most outspoken member of Congress on the UAP topic. You do not want to miss what he has to say. Sign up for our live stream. Get all 3 days of the MUFON Symposium, a 1-year subscription to MUFON TV, and an awesome free gift. What's the free gift? Find out at MUFONsymposium.com/Jimmy. That's MUFONsymposium.com/Jimmy. You do not want to miss a thing.
Hello, Fadernauts. Jimmy Church here, and I know what you're thinking. Lately, Jimmy sounds so fresh. He's so alert. He's so now. Well, that's because of biotech research and their new supplement, Brain Peak 9. Brain Peak 9 contains 9 nutrients that may help support brain function of memory, concentration, recall, and improve focus. Other memory supplements can cost as much as $129 for a 60-day supply. But right now, for a limited time, if you use the discount code FADER, that's right, FADER, just for the Fadernauts, you'll get a 60-day supply for just $49. There's no better time than right now to see what others have been raving about. Help improve your brain function. Go to brainpeak9.com and enter the discount code FADER. That's right, for the Fadernauts. That's brainpeak9.com, discount code FADER, and the links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Click on it now. Seriously.
This is Billy Carson, founder and CEO of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv is the fastest growing and one of the most watched networks in the world. And I would like to personally invite you to check out our expanding library of TV, film, lectures, and special presentations. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv has over 6,000 videos covering lost history, health, UFOs, spirituality, and our future. We are committed to our community, and with my personal invitation, you can right now get your own free 30-day membership at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Your own library of information starts today at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv.
Because you never got that pony you always wanted. Damn it. Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer. Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We're also the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers, and you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black.
I got to be ready for this show tonight. Robert Grant is with us. I'm your Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. There's only one way I'm getting through this show tonight. Brain Peak 9. Brain Peak 9. Whew, man. 2 month supply. Click on the link below. Promo code Fader. That's all you got to do. I think it's Fader 3. Fader, something like that. It's in the link below. Just click on it. This is a conversation, and this is what I like to do on this show. is learn and get my knowledge on. And one of the things, Robert, I do want to say this, that this audience is always on a journey with me. And we've done enough shows over the years that they know that I am here to explore and learn. And I feel that organically over the years, they know my next question. They've been with us for so long. They, we're synergistic, and it's a little bit of a hive mind thing, but the universe is also connected. And we've been doing this for a while, and I'm excited. And they know what this next question is.
Okay.
Which is, what is consciousness? And I know that I asked you this very important question over the weekend, and I sat and listened, and out of the hundreds of times that I've asked this question to guests over the years, where I get a different answer every time, which is fine, but yours didn't overlap. You've got a different take here. And so what is consciousness, Robert?
Well, I'd start by answering your question with a question. Unfortunately, I did this to you also.
Yes, you
did. In LA. What is not conscious? What is not consciousness? I think that's the better place to start from. And because I believe everything in the universe is consciousness. There's nothing that's not. When I discovered the prime number pattern and could predict prime numbers infinitely and published it in 2019, I got 2 invitations. One was to go and speak at the Vatican, interestingly, because there was a prime number pattern and we could predict prime numbers infinitely. And it turned out to be the shape of a Templar cross on a Mod 24. Yep.
Really?
Yep, really was. And so they wanted to understand that. And then secondly, because it implied that if there's a pattern to prime numbers, then something that's not supposed to have a pattern to it, that implies some sort of creator or consciousness or something, right? Some hidden order that we didn't really know about before. And then the other invitation I got was to the Dalai Lama to go to Dharamsala, India. And I spent a week in India, and I spent a day sitting with the Dalai Lama, teaching him the prime number pattern. But I also brought other scientists with me. And we sat there. I had 2 physicists. I had a stem cell biologist as well, 2 number theorists, and a geometer. And we sat there with the Dalai Lama for about 5.5 hours and taught the Dalai Lama about mathematics and physics. And he's already an expert in physics, by the way. He wrote a book called The Universe in a Single Atom. And we all read that book before going. So it was very consistent with, he's studied at the feet of some of the best physicists in the world. Like he's met with Bohm, he's met with, the Suskins of the world, et cetera. He's met most of the major physicists. And it was interesting because there was a moment when we were talking with him where he asked me, he said, "Do you believe that glass of water is conscious?" And my answer was yes, because it has memory. We already know that water, right? First of all, most of what we think of as DNA, we think about adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, right? And then to transfer RNA, uracil replacing thymine.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, when you look at the simplex or the matrix around the DNA, water is the critical aspect of this. It's the critical element that's necessary for DNA to survive, and it carries memory, right? Jean-Luc, it was Montagnier, who's a French scientist who received the Nobel Prize, actually did research and found that they could transport on a radio wave using electromagnetism, right? They could transport DNA from one test tube to another test tube, the other test tube not even having anything in it except for water. So they were able to use the radio signal to be able to transport this DNA across. This is someone who won a Nobel Prize. He didn't win the Nobel Prize for this particular research, but he was a Nobel laureate. And we know that water is conscious because it carries memory. It's a crystalline structure, right? And we know the exact shape of it too, which happens to be the way it clusters together, what's called a truncated icosahedron, which is also referred to as a buckyball. You may have heard of Buckminster Fuller, right?
Sure.
It also happens to be the exact same shape as COVID. COVID is exactly a truncated icosahedron. And so it's pentagons and hexagons. Well, guess what? Our DNA is pentagons and hexagons. So what we find is that there's actually order throughout the entire universe. But then you might say, well, what about all the randomness? What about all the entropy? Do you think that's conscious too? And my answer to that is, it's only us that's perceiving chaos. I almost want to introduce a new approach to how we look at this. Let's say that what we call entropy or randomness is really not truly randomness at all. It's just our perception of what is there, because it's in the category of we don't know what we don't know. So when we don't understand something, we have to apply a word to it that sort of excuses our ignorance for something. Well, actually, I was with Lawrence Krauss, who's a famous physicist as well, in Egypt a couple of months ago, and we both agreed that actually what we call entropy is probably just ignorance. It's where the boundary condition of our knowledge ends and our ignorance begins.
That is true.
Right? So
true. Well,
that doesn't mean it's not pattern. It doesn't mean it's not pattern. It doesn't mean it's not conscious. It just means we're not perceiving it. Maybe if we raise our consciousness to a higher state, we can actually perceive greater degrees of pattern versus entropy or chaos. And maybe that's another way of looking at consciousness quotient, the ability to perceive pattern over chaos. It's a function of our own perception, not really the actual state of things. So I believe the entire universe is conscious. I believe that everything in this universe is conscious, and that it's only us that have limits on how much we can perceive of that universe based on our own conscious progression and evolution.
Now, let's stay on this for a second. Entropy has 2 or 3 definitions.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if we go with the hardcore version of it, which is thermodynamics and the second law of, and there's that version of it that you can apply to different things. There is a more of a popular culture version of entropy, one that I look at closely, which is everything starts out simple. You move into a house, there's no furniture in it, it's clean. A couple of years later, your kid's room is a disaster area. That is entropy, right? It starts out simple, gets complicated. And then there's a third version of entropy that I apply to society in general, and that any planet or any civilization is eventually going to get too complicated and implode upon itself. And you can look at Rome, right? Okay, so or look at our computer system today and the networks, where it started out simple, right? The internet had one original, right? The first website, and now it's out of control and could very easily implode on itself. That's another version of entropy. It has nothing to do with thermodynamics. And if we look at that, if the universe is mathematics, and entropy and mathematics are going to play their way out, right? No matter what, in a universal sense, then is entropy just going to be something that is inevitable all the time?
So actually, the best way I can, analogize this one is not something that I came up with on my own. This is something that is from Walter Russell. So Walter Russell, are you familiar with Walter Russell?
I am very familiar with Walter.
So Walter Russell wrote a book called The Universal One. He wrote a book also called The Secret of Light. And he wrote a treatise during the 1920s that basically debunked a lot of what the physicists of the day were saying. Some of the comments that he made were actually so antithetical to Einstein that, Einstein was sort of rebuffed on it. But later in his life, Einstein said, I should have read more about what Walter Russell had posited. And what Walter's work was around was largely the connection between, and this was the exact same problem that Einstein was trying to solve until he died, right? And was unable to solve it with the Kaluza-Klein theory, although there were aspects of Kaluza-Klein, if you know physics, were actually really profound, right?
Yes.
It's just he had a hard time explaining mathematics in a fifth dimensional context to people that are having a hard time perceiving even third and fourth dimensional constructs. So basically what he said, though, is that the universe goes through cycles of gravitation and radiativity or radiation, that gravity and radiation are not two separate things, but actually they are a result of electricity. So anytime you have a sex paired mating between a positive pole and a negative pole, there will be gravitational effect, and there will also be a radiativity effect, right? Which we would see as light. So maybe we could say that the opposite of light is gravity. Now, that's been posited before. Kaluza-Klein also posited that, and Einstein supported that thesis. The mathematics is what failed. They failed to describe it appropriately in that fifth dimensional frame. Maybe they could have done it all in 2 dimensions, because in 2 dimensions, all the information necessary, just as the black hole surface is 2 dimension. If I show you a hexagon shape, right? So I have a cuboctahedron right here.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to cast a shadow, right, on my desk of this, the shape of this would look just like, it could have a square shape, right? It could also have, from a different perspective, if I had it sort of sideways on this, it could actually look even like a hexagon, right? It could be a hexagon shape. And within that hexagon shape, as a flat 2-dimensional form, all the information necessary for it to pop into this shape is actually there, right? That's why a holographic universe can exist in a 2-dimensional plane, Euclidean plane, and popped into multiple dimensions, right?
When Russell wrote, he said one thing that very similar to what you're saying right there, but it made me think for months that all of us live in a 2D world. We just don't know it. And if you want proof of that, you've all got a shadow, right? And that's it. That's it. You're walking down the street. There's a 2D version of you projected on the ground. That can make you. And it was so profound that it was just like a little sentence, right?
Yeah. It's a mind blower.
It's a mind blower. It's a mind blower.
Right. And if you haven't read Walter Russell's stuff, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Probably the best cosmologist that the world has ever seen.
I agree.
In fact, Nikola Tesla said of his work to hide it away for 1,000 years because the world is not ready for this understanding. Okay, they were partners together. They were partners together on several projects, in fact, and good friends as well. But the point that I'm making about this is that maybe these cycles of entropy and its opposite, which we call negentropy or syntropy, sometimes it's referred to, are just life and death cycles. So then how do you separate out and say, okay, life is going to be negentropic, so it's bringing organization to something, but actually the moment you're born, you start to die. So these two forces are operating simultaneously. So then we could have a hard time arguing that death is not simply a part of life. What if it's actually, as Walter Russell posits, just a giant inhalation and exhalation cycle? That death is as much life as life is death. So in other words, as we start to bring organization to things, there will also be an aspect of it that will bring disorganization at the same time, or what we would call entropy. This is really just a gigantic inhalation and exhalation cycle. So for example, we talk about the universe is expanding at the speed of light, right? And now they're saying it might even be expanding faster than that, right? Have you probably heard that recently because you follow physics a lot. So if that's the case, then what's really happening here, right? If the universe is expanding at the speed of light, maybe that's actually just another way of looking at our own consciousness expanding as we learn and grow and evolve. But there will be a cycle that then the universe starts to contract as we start to exhale. We're taking a big inhalation right now. The universe expands. And then over time, and this could be billions and billions and billions of years, maybe even more, that it would take for us to get through one breath cycle. Do you know how many breaths that we have in one day?
I don't. What is that number?
That's an interesting number because a lot of people don't know this. On average, human beings breathe once, inhalation, exhalation, every 3.33333 seconds. So 3 1/3 seconds. So you take in a breath, you inhale and exhale. So 3 1/3 seconds. Guess how many breaths that would be then? Because we have 86,400 seconds in a day. It means we have 25,920 breaths. in a day. Wait, you might recognize that number. Isn't
do.
that the same as the precession of equinox in years?
And you know what else it is? It's how many days you're alive if you live to the age of
72.
Yeah, 72. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So wait, then that brings another meaning to it. Maybe we have a set number of breaths while we live here. We all have a number, right? How many? And guess what? This is what Hindus believe. Hindus believe that everyone's born with a set number of breaths. Okay. And by the way, that's just the square root of the speed of light in miles per hour. So if you look at miles per hour of the speed of light, it's 671,800,000 miles per hour. If you take that and you take the square root of that, it's 25,920. Now, I'll just keep going on this because this is the precession of equinox. We have, the period of time that it takes for the Earth to precess on its wobble, and it precesses through the equinox backwards. It precesses through the zodiac backwards. So instead of going Aries, Taurus, to Gemini, and then so on, Cancer or whatever, it goes backwards. It goes the exact opposite direction. And so we have a 25,920-year cycle. Actually, we don't believe it's that. We believe that the true cycle is 24,000 years, and that there's a long aspect of the cycle as we get farther and farther away from our sister star, Sirius A, right, and B. As we get farther away from it, it takes what would be 25,920 years, but then, of course, cut that in two, 12,960.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we get closer to it, you've seen how binary stars move quicker as they get closer to each other, right? Just like that. Okay. Then it would be 21,600 years. So the average comes out to 24,000 years, just under 24,000 years. And this is, not a coincidence, because it just so happens also that our distance from the galactic center, you can look it up. How many light years are we from the center of the galaxy? 25,920 light years. This is a pattern that ties to our breaths. Entropy is just a perception of entropy. It's just an exhalation process. It's a lack of understanding. It's a lack of knowing. It's a lack of perception. As we breathe things in, we can actually take in more information. But one is just part of the next process. They're not separable. Gravity and electromagnetism are just part of the same thing, just as Walter posits. They're actually the same thing. We have darkness is not really the absence of light. Darkness is the opposite condition of it. Entropy is the opposite condition of negentropy. It's just a condition of a state. That's it.
Now, all of this, though, and I get it, I do, cannot be chance, right? It can't be coincidence.
No, I mean, look, if I were going to make a perfect time system, how would I do it? If I were going to devise an entirely perfect time system, what I would do is I would probably say, okay, whatever you're orbiting around should have a relationship to your time, right? And of course, your spin of your planet should have a relationship to that as well. Okay, so let's pick a unit of measure. And let's just say arbitrarily the Sumerians used the mile, because the first reference to a mile was in the Epic of Gilgamesh. There is no older book on planet Earth.
That's correct.
Okay, so let's look at this for a moment. And it was the Sumerians, the oldest civilization that we know in our recorded history. I don't believe it's the oldest civilization. I just believe that we went through periods of inhalation and exhalation. I believe we went through periods of stupidity, loss of knowledge, where everything was perceived as entropic, and we lost knowledge in the process as we go through these time, aeons that then bring different aspects to us, that we learn different things and we have different experiences. We have dark ages, we have light age, we have Renaissance, we have age of Aquarius, right? An Aquarian Renaissance. All of these things, if you look back at the mile, okay, is it a coincidence then that we have 86,400 seconds in a day? And how's that derived? 24 hours times 60 minutes times 60 seconds. That's no great feat, right? Okay, so let's just pull on this string a little bit further. What is the diameter of the sun?
What is the diameter of the sun?
864,000 miles. Wait a minute. So we have, for every 10 seconds, we have a mile of diameter for the sun for every day? You think that's coincidence?
Well, I don't. And so if we would push the boundaries against somebody like a Sam Harris or Lawrence Krauss or others.
Well, I had fun with Lawrence on this one, especially we were in the Great Pyramid together, and I think I blew his mind on some of these things.
Yeah, and you know, and I think that most of them, the Richard Dawkins of the world, right, their little cadre, their little circle, I think that if the plane is going down, they're the most spiritual people on the planet because they get it. They get it. And
well, isn't there something what I said earlier about anything that you can hate, you can love?
Well, for everything that's black, there is white, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So, but here's the thing, and I've got 60 seconds. If it's not coincidence, and I don't believe that it is there something, call it divine, call it uber smart? Is there something behind
an architect
before our universe was created, right? Something infinitely old and wise is out there, right?
I think it's like, you know, at the end of Ready Player One, the movie. Did you see that?
Many times.
When he's like, "Thanks for playing my game."
Right.
Hands him the keys, right? They get the keys.
Right,
the key master. Is there a key master? The answer to that question in my mind is unequivocally yes.
Right.
And it's you.
Well played. Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Robert Grant. And you knew I was going to have fun tonight. Robert Grant is here. This is what a conversation is all about. We're going to take a quick break. This is Fade to Black. That's right. On the UNX and Game Changer Networks, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com. Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. Fadernauts, when you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Robert Grant is with us. I'm just getting started. I just sent Robert. Robert, check your private chat. You'll get where my head is at. Thunderstorm, 3-pack deal right now. You can smell as fresh as I do. The bunker is incredible. Kills viruses. Yeah, it does all kinds of things, but it also just makes things smell great. Get your Thunderstorm below. And, okay, Robert, there are so many things to discuss tonight. We're not going to get it all into the show, and, you know, we'll be back and we'll have you back and things. But I want to touch on a few things. We were talking earlier about math and contact with aliens. You're the CEO. You've got multiple companies. You've got to be prim and proper. You've got to speak correctly. You've got to watch what you say. You've got to do all of that stuff. But I'm still going to ask this question.
Right? Go right ahead.
Have you ever seen something strange in the sky that you can't explain?
Oh, yeah, many times.
And how do you do that with a pragmatic black and white mind?
You just tell the truth.
And give me one example. What did you see?
So 27, I think the first time I had some experiences back in 1981. It was actually 1980, right before, like last week of the year. And I lived in Rendlesham Forest in England.
Oh, shut up. What?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, whoa. Pump the brakes right there. When was this?
It was exactly when that famous visitation happened. My father was in the U.S. military.
Right.
We lived off the base, and we lived right on the edge of Rendlesham Forest.
Okay, keep going.
I shared this only with Gary Osborne, and I had an experience when I was 11 years old. That was my first time. And I saw the ship. They were there. It was in my backyard, and butted up against where that forest was.
Right.
And it happened 2 nights that week. It was on I think it was the 27th or 26th, Boxing Day. It was Boxing Day. The 26th, the day after Christmas, and the 28th, I think.
Those were the magical nights. Wow. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but
Gary Osborne's written a book on it and everything.
Yeah, it's a great book. Yeah, it's a great
Gary
book.
did a 3-hour interview with me, and I told him the whole story. But then also, I went to Egypt in 2017, and I was there with Nassim Haramein, a physicist, and I was there. So that was the first time I ever taught my mathematics. I had invested behind Nassim and brought him from Hawaii back to California.
Right.
And he invited me to come and speak at this conference with mathematicians and physicists there, and I was going to teach. He'd known about my work because he'd seen it from 2015 onward, and he asked me to present it to the group, and he gave me a keynote spot for it. And so I gave a presentation. It was supposed to be on mathematics as a language, and it was only supposed to be for like an hour and a half, and it was the keynote position before we're going to go into the pyramid that night, and we're going to have like the entire Giza plateau was closed down for us. We had all 3 pyramids open. It was the first time that they'd ever done that. All 3 pyramids open, and also go to the Sphinx at dawn. And I was very excited to give this presentation. Well, I got so many questions from everyone, teaching it to them, that basically I ended up teaching for 4 hours. And at the end of it, half the room was in tears, which shocked me because I'm like, this is math, right? But people felt like they got a new relationship to mathematics and to the universe in just listening to this. So I had never taught any of it before to a large group like that. Well, that night, we went to the Great Pyramid. We were in the King's Chamber. I got to lay in the sarcophagus. And then many of us went out afterwards. There were still people inside the pyramid, and we were laying outside on the ground, right? Which is basically just, large limestone blocks, right? And it's just, some of it's kind of like bedrock that's there. And we're just laying on it, and we're looking up at the sky. And there were about 50 of us there laying outside, because there were still 130 people that were in the pyramids somewhere in the process. So you can only have 50 people at a time inside the Great Pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we're looking at the stars, and I remember I actually recorded it, and all of us were laying there. I'm like, are you guys seeing what I'm seeing? We thought were stars started moving in formations. And there were about 75 of them, 75 ships above the Giza Plateau that night. And we all saw it.
I've got nothing. And I love it when that happens. I do. And which is full circle back to consciousness, in that I've always felt, and I want to know your answer, that at that moment when you've got that many minds, that much brain power lying on the limestone rocks, looking up in a positive mindset.
Oh, we were all very happy. Yeah, we're all like in a blissful state.
Mm-hmm. Right. That something happens.
But there were no drugs involved. At least not for me. I can't speak for everybody else that was there, all 50 people, but I had no drugs. I was not on anything. I had no alcohol. I saw this with my own eyes. And I could say this, that the experience at Rendlesham is connected. So, Rendlesham points everything back to the fine structure constant. Rendlesham points everything back. One of the guys that was on there, I think it was Jim Peniston was the name of the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was a major or something, and he could recite all of the digits of the fine structure constant that weren't even known at that time. And every year when they update the code data information, go out for another digit of accuracy on the calculation, it's just exactly correct to what he said it was. It was published back, in probably the 90s or something like that.
He wrote it out.
He wrote it out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it points right back to the Giza Plateau. And that was kind of fascinating for me, because also my experience when I was 11 years old was all with Arcturians, and they claim to be just future humans.
Which is what Peniston also said.
That's exactly right. And that's what I experienced also in Egypt.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And which dovetails nicely into what I wanted to talk about next. We started to touch upon it.
By the way, it wasn't really the Ark of the Covenant, it was always the Arcturian covenant.
Excuse me? Keep
Ark
going.
of the Covenant.
Right.
The Ark of the Covenant. These words like architect, Ark of the Covenant.
Right.
You've seen about the Ark of the Covenant. Actually, the original form of it was the Arcturian covenant.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, that answers a lot of questions. And there's another, I don't want to go too sideways here, but there's been a lot of discussion that the sarcophagus that you laid in the king's chamber,
it's not a place that carried the Ark. Yeah.
Carried the Ark.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done all the dimensional analysis of the, oh, by the way, the king's chamber, if you take the sarcophagus and you put it on its side and you stack it to the ceiling, it will stack 6 sarcophagi to the ceiling. I know you like to use the word sarcophagus. It's just the word everyone knows because nobody ever died in that thing, right? It's a resurrection ascension thing. It's about spirituality.
Sure.
Arcturians are very, very spiritual. They're mathematicians. They're big time mathematicians. In fact, they do joke about, there's sort of a joking thing they have about the rudimentary nature of our math, which they even chide themselves for doing it. It's pretty funny, but they do have a sense of humor. The point is that you could stack the sarcophagus on its side to the ceiling 6 times, and it will stack side by side 5 times. So that means you have 30, and then you can do 30 and 30 and 30. And guess how many times the sarcophagus will fit inside the king's chamber? 137.
Oh, nothing is a coincidence, man. Nothing. And if somebody wants to argue with me that DNA just happened, right? Just happened. Lightning struck some amino acids on a crystal in a creek bed in Africa, and we've got DNA. No.
Well, let me give you another example of there's no way it could have just happened. How about something as simple and rudimentary as a perfect solar eclipse? Do you know what the odds? You know what has to happen for us to have a perfect solar eclipse?
Everything.
If I told you we're the only planet in the solar system that has a perfect solar eclipse with its moon, right?
That's right.
So here are the ingredients that have to go into it. I said already that the diameter of the sun is 864,000 miles, right? 864,000 miles. And you can look this up. You'll get ranges because it will, equatorial circumference is a little bit different. So therefore the diameter is a little bit different. But you take the average of the polar as well as the equatorial, you're going to get that, which by the way, because it's 864,000 miles, guess what the circumference of the sun is? It's the Euler number in miles, 2.718 million miles. Just Google it. You'll get a number that's going to range between whatever you Google. What is the circumference of the sun in miles? It's going to be between 2.714 million miles and 2.72 million miles. It's the Euler number, right? So here it is. Talk about in plain sight. Okay, in plain sight. Now, 86,400 seconds in a day. So in order for the sun to be perfectly eclipsed by the moon, it has to follow that the diameter must be proportionally a delta difference from the sun as a ratio to the exact same proportion of the distance. So if the distance is 400 times greater from Earth to the sun than it is from Earth to the moon, then the diameter must be exactly 400 times smaller for the moon than it is for the sun. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Guess what? That's exactly what it is. The moon's diameter is 2,160 miles. Multiply that by 400, and that comes out to 864,000 miles. And the distance is 93 million miles from the Earth to the sun, and it's 232,000 average miles from the Earth to the moon. That's 400 times difference. So therefore, we have a perfect solar eclipse. And therefore, the sun in the sky, while it's so much brighter than the moon, is exactly the same aspect ratio on average in the sky when we look at it. If you see the moon on the horizon, sometimes it looks really big, right? But guess what? The average is identical to the sun. Isn't that kind of weird? What are the chances that we'd have exactly a moon and a sun that are the exact same size?
Yes, I know. And it's not weird.
In our perspective.
Yeah, see, and the thing is, it's not weird, Robert. And I, for again, when we talk about DNA, this is very important to me. And the other part where the scientific community and the hard sciences want to argue these points that DNA is universal. Amino acids are universal. Particles are universal. They can only combine so many different ways, and that's it. It's not an infinite thing. Therefore, anything that happens here happens everywhere else in the universe. And if we're getting meteorites crashing into the surface of this planet with the fundamental amino acids on them to create RNA and transfer data to DNA, therefore, life is universal throughout the universe. This is not something that magically happened here. It's simply not. And I will not accept anything else. And I'll argue all day long with Neil deGrasse Tyson about this.
Oh, yeah. No, I would love to. I would love to have this conversation with any one of them, because on the face of it, the mathematics doesn't lie. Right? I mean, it's not a coincidence also. You look at the distance from the planet Mercury to the sun is 36,000 miles. Okay? So then the distance between Venus and the sun is 67,100 miles, or sorry, 67,100,000 miles. And guess what? That's the speed of light again in miles per hour. Right? It's just with a zero off the end of it. Guess what? What's the speed of Earth?
Oh, you froze. Let's see if you come back. I don't know if you can hear me. Uh-oh, we froze up at a key moment.
We lost you for a second there.
Okay, yeah, we lost you too. Okay, you're back. You're back.
So would you be surprised to know that the Earth travels, its velocity is 18.6 miles per second? Wait, doesn't that mean that it's 10,000 times slower than the speed of light? It's exact. What is going on here? All of this is just a little bit too perfect, isn't it? And then when you take 25,920, you multiply that by this 186,000 miles per second, right? And you end up with 483 million. That's the distance between Jupiter and the sun. What a surprise that the sun and Jupiter are exactly 10 times difference in their diameter. Jupiter's 86,400 miles diameter. We're talking about harmonic ratios here.
Yeah, harmonic ratio. And here's the thing, Robert. 5,000 years ago, 3,000 BC, the nomadic tribes going through the Sahara Desert somehow magically get together, bring together Upper and Lower Egypt, and then 200 years later, 200 years, they went from foraging for seeds in the dirt, right, in the sand, to understanding these concepts, to the ratio of the sun to the equator of the earth and the speed of light and the golden ratio and pi, and applied all of these concepts to the engineering that went into the Great Pyramid 200 years after just roaming the desert. How is that possible? It doesn't make any sense unless there's something else divine, or things are much older than we were taught.
Yeah, I think it's probably some combination. So if you think about it also, I actually think that over the next 200 years, the amount of conscious expansion humanity is going to experience is going to be a leap. It's going to be a leap. It's already happening right now. It may be even why we're looking at the universe expanding faster than the speed of light now, which means that if the universe expands faster than the speed of light, shouldn't time then go backwards? Or maybe...
Okay, wait a minute. Here's my notes. Here's my notes from 5 minutes ago. The last thing that I wrote down.
Entropy and time, right?
Entropy and time.
Well, I mean, what is the anagram of time? I said that. So time and gravity are associated, right? Everyone knows this. You saw the movie Interstellar. You talked about Kip Thorne.
Yep. By the way,
to meet with Kip Thorne once.
Let me interrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Kip Thorne's book, The Science of Interstellar, one of the best books written in the last 10 years. And I recommend it to anybody. I've read it 10 times.
It's excellent because it's also written for anybody. That's the thing I like about it, right? Physics should be explainable and should be understandable. Should be something we can comprehend. But, remember that one scene in Interstellar where they landed on the planet that was close to the black hole Gargantuan?
Mm-hmm.
And they were there for only like 45 minutes, but 23 years had passed. This is a phenomenon that we refer to as time dilation, right? Time dilation because of the extreme gravity that they were sort of very in close proximity to, right? So we cannot separate gravity and time and space. So we have time, space, or space-time, whatever you want to call it. The two things are connected. You can't separate the two. We measure the distances in space with time measurements, don't we? We measure it in light years, the distances. Right? We say it's 50 miles away, right? And we can travel at 50 miles per hour, right? So we measure the two things in an interrelated way, right? So when we think about it in that context, if time and space can't be separated, and therefore time and gravity are intrinsic to one another, then you could look at what is the opposite. What does a laser do with light? It emits light, doesn't it? Light is emitted. And that's what we say with a laser. A laser is light amplification of stimulated emission of radiation. That's what laser is an acronym for. Most people don't know that acronym, right? So light amplification of stimulated emission of radiation. Okay, so now we take laser and we then say emission is the key word here. What is emit backwards? Time.
It is.
So wait. Really? So emission of light and time is possibly graviton related, right? Which is a dark photon in a way. So you could say that I said earlier before the break that light is not the absence, darkness is not the absence of light. Rather, I believe it's the opposite condition of it. Okay. So then if you have an opposite condition, you can think of it like an LED screen. The way I like to look at it is like this. We go to a football game and we do a wave. You've done a wave in a stadium, right? Where you all stand up and go, woo. Now, are you moving? Are you traveling around the stadium? Or is the wave what's propagating what we perceive as traveling, right? So let's say, you have an earthquake in Japan and there's a massive earthquake. And so a tsunami comes across. So are the water molecules that end up on the shores of California originally originating from Japan or the shores of Japan? No. The molecules don't move. They stay in the same position. What's happening is you have an on excitation and an off excitation.
That's correct.
Just like an LED on a screen. So if a ping pong ball goes across, you play pong back in the 70s, right? Is the ball really traveling? Is the light really traveling? Or is it really just the perception of traveling? Because each individual LED is turning on, then turning off, then turning on, then turning off, then turning off. And it's following a wave propagation across. You follow what I'm saying?
I do. Well, isn't that our entire existence?
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's a holographic simulation universe. So as a holographic simulation, it's all based on our perception and our judgments inform our illusions. This is where it comes back to consciousness. So wait a minute. That means that the opposite of time is emission of light, emit, and time. Maybe another way to look at it is it's me. This is what I said earlier. The architect is you. The architect is each one of us. What we consider as our destiny is really just the free will of the higher self for our avatars.
If that is the case, then is it difficult for us to see other life forms throughout the universe because they could be living on a different time scale?
And a different dimension.
It could be longer, could be shorter.
So
and
our reference of dimensions, I believe, is completely wrong. Right. So Carl Sagan did a really good job explaining this once. And he talked about, there's a good video on YouTube about it, where he talks about if an apple falls through a two-dimensional land of flatlanders, right? What would they perceive? All they would see would be slices of the apple falling through their world, right? They wouldn't be able to perceive it in the third dimension because until they had the cognition or the ability to perceive in that higher dimension, they wouldn't be able to see in that higher dimension. So, and we don't even know how to describe it, because how do you describe something that's a phenomenon in a higher dimension without using words associated from that higher dimension?
Right, which words that we don't have a definition for to explain it and communicate it anyway.
That's right. And maybe that's why psychedelics can be very powerful, because it helps people to see it before they actually start to experience it differently. You start seeing colors differently. And I don't believe psychedelics are introducing a new illusion to us. I believe psychedelics, when used properly, are revealing the illusion.
Isn't that the laboratory measurement that may be needed to find a parallel world and understand it in a scientific sense?
It could very well be, but bear with me for just a second. So basically, the way I see this is that if you live in a conscious universe, right, and all of the experiences that we have within that conscious universe are intended to give us experiences of growth. Let's assume that we start off as a grasshopper, right? Now, I'm not asking anyone to do any psychedelics here. I'm not advocating for it, but I'll say this. Let's say that a grasshopper lives in a field, and that field is a pretty large field. But the grasshoppers don't live very long, maybe a few weeks. I don't even know how long the lifespan of a grasshopper is. But let's assume that the grasshopper lives in this field and it believes that that field is its universe. It knows nothing more than that universe. So if it were talking to its grasshopper friends, it would say, this is my universe. This is the whole world. There's nothing more here. It dies. It comes back. Let's say it comes back and advances to a monkey. Now it lives in a jungle environment, and it's able to see more flora and more fauna. There's more experiences. There's new life forms. It's more biodiverse, right, in that environment. So as it expands its consciousness, it realizes there's more than just a field. There's a whole jungle. But it doesn't yet know about the existence of a city that might just be on the other side of a mountain from its distance. So then let's say it, in that life, it can experience the other animals in the jungle. It might see a sloth, or it might see other things, the birds, macaques, whatever. It might see all these different kinds of other monkeys or other animals. It dies, it comes back, and it's born in some rural town, USA. Never travels, never gets on a plane. That person might actually perceive that their entire world and everyone in it is going to see the world like they do and think just as they do. That's their world. There's a certain amount, maybe there's not such a diverse, flora fauna environment. Maybe they live in a rural place where, I grew up in Nebraska for part of my life. After I lived in England, I moved to Nebraska. I got to detassel corn. I thought corn was the world, right? That was it. Well, guess what? There's more to the world. Let's say now that person comes back into a different life. They come back and they're living in a metropolitan city somewhere in the world. They travel the world. They've been everywhere. They've been to 140 countries. They know experiences. They understand cultures. They understand diversity of thought. They start to ascend higher. So then what's the next level? They've already seen different races around the world. They see different species of animals, flora and fauna. The next level of that expansion, why would it not be any different than the grasshopper going to the monkey, going to the man, going to the world traveler? You follow what I'm saying?
The
next level of consciousness might just be higher dimension. And let's just say, and a lot of people are like, oh man, when are we going to get this big contact experience? Guess what, guys? They're already here. They've been here all along. They've been in higher dimension. It's us that have to raise our consciousness, and we could do it in this life. We're at this precipice, this change of time, where we're able to expand our awareness and perceive these things. They're already here. They've been here all along.
I need to take a break. I got to do it, Robert. I got to do it.
Go for it.
Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. I apologize to the network. I'm 30 seconds late. I'm not going to interrupt Robert Grant. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal God, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, the X.
2022 MUFON Symposium is in Denver, Colorado, July 7th through 10th, and it's on. If you can't make it to Denver, get the live stream. You can watch it live and anytime later. This year's theme is UFOs in the Spotlight. Our speaker lineup is incredible. Join Cheryl Jones, Peter Robbins, Michael Schratt, Kathleen Martin, Tom Reed, Paul Hynek, Peter Davenport, Dave Scott, Craig Campabasso, Donald Schmidt, Mark D'Antonio, and me, Ron James, for an exciting inside look at my new film. Newsflash, Congressman Tim Burchett has just confirmed that he will be making an exclusive live presentation at MUFON 2022. Tim is the most outspoken member of Congress on the UAP topic. You do not want to miss what he has to say. Sign up for our live stream. Get all 3 days of the MUFON Symposium, a 1-year subscription to MUFON TV, and an awesome free gift. What's the free gift? Find out at MUFONSymposium.com/Jimmy. That's MUFONSymposium.com/Jimmy. You do not want to miss a thing.
Hello, Fadernauts. Jimmy Church here. You've seen me with my thunderstorm. Now you can purify the air in your home and get healthy, clean, fresh-smelling air and eliminate odors just like I do right here in the bunker. The Eden Pure Thunderstorm uses oxy technology that naturally sends out O3 molecules into the air, which seek out odors and air pollutants in your home and destroys them. It's called a thunderstorm because it purifies the air just like after a thunderstorm. And right now, you can save $200 on an Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack for whole home protection. With this special offer, you're getting 3 units for under $200. Seriously. Go to EdenPureDeals.com and use Fader3. Shipping is free and it's easy. Just scroll down. You'll see my name right there, Jimmy Church. Click on it and get your deal today. That's EdenPureDeals.com.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? Unex Media publishes nonfiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNX-DB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from River Moon. Just click on the River Moon coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Robert Grant is with us. This is the kind of conversation I enjoy all the shows, but this is my wheelhouse right here. This is a fantastic show tonight, and I hope that everybody is hanging with me and my thought process. And so let's go back where we just left off, Robert, if we may, in that if we are not a generation away, that we are in the now of this moment, of these possibilities. There are a few other things that are happening at the same time. Science is pushing as hard as they can to make contact and to find out. We've got James Webb, we have TESS, we have astronomers and cosmologists and astrophysicists and every telescope pointing out and exoplanets. It's all coming at us, and we have the ability with our brains to think about these things. And now, technically, we're at a level 25 years ago, one exoplanet, right? Now we know that every single star everywhere has got at least one exoplanet, and we are now able to look at planets orbiting stars and star system thousands, if not millions, of light years away. This is extraordinary, and we are at a moment now. Are we ready as a species, as Earthlings, for what's about to happen next? Because the pursuit of this is going to have some conclusions very soon.
So this is kind of an existential type question, right?
It is very existential.
Because
well,
I think
you know what? Almost not existential though. It's almost tangible. So
it was very tangible. It's like the question is, do we have our shit together?
Yes.
Right. I think here I'll give you the good news and I'll give you the bad news, because everything has an equal opposite, right? Every action must have an equal opposite reaction.
Okay, grasshopper. Okay.
I think this is where there's comfort and solace for me in this. We cannot have a higher order experience and higher order consciousness without the context of lower order consciousness also happening simultaneously. You cannot have very bright light without some impact on time and gravity. So think about that for a moment. Let's just say that to express light in a way, I came back to my desk one day. I had a Vitruvian man that was made by Taschen, and I had it framed, and I took it off the wall because I was like, oh, this is an exact scale replica. So I wanted to measure everything to scale to see if it was exactly to scale. And indeed it was. It was perfectly to scale. And guess what? Leonardo da Vinci's circle of Vitruvian man was, surprise, surprise, a radius of 4.32 inches. This has been around a long time. How is it me that's finding this, right? 4.32 inches. That seems kind of funny, doesn't it? I mean, you know what 432 means.
Yep.
Kind of interesting. So that means that the diameter is 864. That's really interesting. And the circle's circumference is Euler number. So I had this on my desk, and while I was looking at it, the sun came through the window, and it made this perfectly shaped, like snake-shaped rainbow over the Vitruvian man. I took a photograph of it. I posted on social media. I was like, wow, check this up. And it actually started out the way the light came in. It came up his feet and then slowly came up and covered his whole body with this beautiful, like, rainbow snake. Looked like a rainbow snake. I thought, this is pretty cool. Well, what if the higher order awareness and understanding is that we can experience light in a different way, just as we can experience music in a different way. Just as I said, synesthesia for numbers, for me, means that I see the number 2 as orange. I see the number 6 as blue. I see the number 8 as violet, right? All these numbers have colors, but then people that experience music, and I have the same thing as well, when I listen to music, I see colors too. Have you ever seen that before? Have you noticed that before?
No.
So maybe, yeah, okay. So maybe, what if the higher experience requires a higher consciousness? And everyone can access it. It's something as simple as believing you can do it. You know, the CIA did tests. You can find a lot about this on remote viewing, and they found anyone could remote view. If they taught them the method to do it, and they actually believed that they could do it, you can all remote view. If you can remote view, even to the point of seeing the rings of Jupiter, right? Or seeing 20 years beforehand a boat exploding off of the coast of Somalia, right? And its hull being torn out. This is all in detail. It can be found in the Stargate project, the CIA. I'm sure you've probably talked about it here on this show before, right?
I've had many guests from Stargate on this show.
So if we can do that, then we could probably all learn how to expand and raise our consciousness. Now, the first step is to understand that our brain is not a storage device of information. It's not a hard drive for all of our memories. Our brain, I see it more as a radio. It's a radio. I have a friend, Nassim Haramein, who says, and I think he's right on this, that looking for your thoughts inside your brain is like trying to look for the radio announcer inside the radio box or inside my screen here. You're not inside my screen. You're in a different place. Our brains are radio receivers, or like antenna, whose tuning dial for frequency is your heart, your emotional state. You can raise your frequency, and by raising your frequency through getting into an emotional state that is going to be about joy and happiness, and this becomes more of a decision. It's not a circumstance. You have to break away from the belief system that your happiness is tied to your circumstance. It's not. Your happiness is a decision that you make. It's a decision we all make. And when we can break away from that lower order type of thinking where we're basically whipsawing according to the circumstances in our life, then we start to ascend and raise our vibration. And by doing so, we can access new ideas. We can get patented ideas. We can create things. We can access this field, the Akashic field. And I have been lucky to surf in that field many times, where I have many patents. And I love bringing those things in. And I don't feel like I own them at all because they're not mine to own. Anyone can access this field if they so chose to do so. So it's a matter of us raising our consciousness. So then when we raise our consciousness to that level, we actually start to see at a higher level patterns rather than perceiving chaos. Patterns are also a frequency that we can tap into. So if light is also going to be tied to that patterns, maybe the higher dimension of light might be to see more rainbows and everything within it. Like a lot of people describe the fifth dimension, right? Just as people that have had a psychedelic experience with mushrooms in particular, they'll say, I saw rainbows everywhere. And then after they stopped being on mushrooms, they could actually see the structure of walls, and they could see the structure of geometry all around them, right? So it's kind of providing you with training wheels to see the structure that's already there that you have shielded from your own vision. So let's say that higher order experience is to see light over there. Well, guess what? What if the only way you could do that is by turning up the contrast on your screen? Now, what is contrast? When we turn up the contrast, what we're really doing is we're adding darkness into the screen. It creates more contrast so that we can have the context with which to see this light and its new differentiated state, its higher order state, the rainbows and everything in it, and maybe more sparkly, maybe it's more iridescent, maybe it's got more golden flecks within it. And we just never noticed it before. But somehow by turning up the contrast, by adding the darkness to the backdrop, we see it better. It's no different than putting a diamond that we're thinking about buying for our sweetheart on a black velvet piece of cloth. We want to put it on the darkest background possible so that all the light comes out of that diamond and we can see all of its different facets. What if the experience that we're having in the world right now, to answer your question, is a necessary one? In order for us to experience this higher order consciousness, there must actually be an equal opposite reflection that's also taking place simultaneously. That there will be increased darkness in this world for us to be able to manifest the light. You ever noticed how all the movies talk about, magic coming into the world? like Lord of the Rings, it's always in the context. Magic always somehow comes out whenever there's like orcs in the world, whenever there's some darkness and really, really bad stuff is happening. That's when the magician shows up. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Is that by coincidence? Or is it just an artifact of our station and state of consciousness?
Isn't the accidental, if you go back to the slit experiment,
double slit,
right? And that was an accident, right? But it allowed science to go, wait a minute, things aren't what they seem. And if this is showing us how light can be perceived differently through particles, and maybe, well, wait a minute, isn't that applicable to everything then, right? And shouldn't science then just start thinking outside of the box?
Yes. And therefore, right, when you think about double slit, if you're getting mind bent on the whole concept of double slit phenomena, for those people that aren't familiar with double slit, the way it works is that if you fire a photon or electrons, right, through these two slits, two metal slits, and you don't observe it while it's going through those metal slits, it will leave a distribution pattern or a gradation pattern on, like, paper on the backside that is sort of sensitive to this. It's like a radioisotope sort of paper, so you can actually review it after the fact. But as soon as you turn on a camera to observe it, the very act of turning on the observation of that makes it so that instead of having this gradation, distribution pattern on this back wall after it's gone through the slits, which then implies that it was a wave that traversed through those slits, then it all of a sudden just goes back to slits. It's as if the photons and the electrons are conscious and know when they're going to be observed. Now, that's already kind of a mind blower, right? But let's apply something else called the quantum eraser to this.
But you understand my point, though, right? Mm-hmm. If something can react to observation, wait a minute, and they want us to understand and believe that as fact, correct? Well, then why do physicists have a problem with ghosts? Or why do physicists have a problem with, and now they're reaching into parallel worlds and the multiverse. All of this is what this conscious community has been yelling about for so many years. But now physics and quantum physics is going in this direction. I don't understand
why. What's funny about it to me is that, when you look at it, the academic scientific community is never the one who actually comes up with the inventions or the new understandings.
Correct.
It's usually the guy with the tinfoil on his head that later on in the movie 2012, when all of a sudden the world's exploding, it's the end of the world, everyone's like, whoa, this guy was right with the tinfoil on his head. But no one ever gives that guy the credit, interestingly. So what often happens is we tend to perceive spirituality as this weird, kooky, bizarre thing that's intangible, right? It's not it's not something we can put objective sort of scientific research behind. We can't measure it. But maybe spirituality is just the science we don't understand yet.
Isn't that what Schrodinger's cat is all about? Right?
Yes, absolutely. And so this is where the quantum eraser applied to the double slit really comes in. So the quantum eraser is another test, because the double slit phenomena has been tested and retested many, many times over. But it was only recently that the quantum eraser went into effect. So what the quantum eraser did was it basically allowed for there to be, observation and no observation at the same time. So what do I mean by this? What I mean is that it was a time effect. Let's assume that the particles, right, before they're particles, they're waves, they're going through. And only if you were to go back and review the tape later on. So let's say the tape was never observed, right? It was never observed. Somehow these exact same waves and particle interactions occurred as if it knew if it would ever be observed, looking at time in a totally different context. So it wasn't going to be observed until far after, but if it was ever going to be observed in the future, somehow the waves and particles acted accordingly based on whether or not it was ever going to be observed. So what it tells us is that all dimensions of time might actually be acting simultaneously. And that what we think of as this separate experience of the linearity of time might actually just be our own conditioning, bias, and illusion of judgment.
So this is the heavy part to me. When I hear any of the big rock star physicists, have this discussion, and they literally say with a straight face, right? With a straight face, well, you look at the particle and it changes and it reacts and changes another particle at an infinite distance. Now, wait a minute. They're talking about looking, right? When they say observe, they're talking about looking at something and changing it. That is, and they want, like I said, with a straight face, they want the rest of the world to accept this, and they're attempting to prove this with numbers and measurement. And that's pretty crazy, but that's also science fiction, and that's the world that we live in today, right, Robert? That's
correct. I think you can change the outcome of whatever an experiment is. And we do this every day, and it's called the placebo effect. This is why the placebo effect is really hard to beat, right? Because the placebo is the best drug there ever has been, right? I'm from the pharmaceutical industry, and I can tell you that placebo is tough to beat because it's very, very effective. Because what we believe will happen, the summation of our expectations becomes our reality. If we look at Wall Street as an example, right? Let's just look at this as one example. Wall Street may decide that 6 months from now, the price of lithium is going to go through the roof. If everyone believes that there's going to be a shortage on lithium because there's some problem in Taiwan or something, right, with China coming up, what will happen to the price of lithium today? It will jump to the expectation that was expected for 6 months from now. Because reality is a summation. It's an aggregate response to our own stimulus of our own conditioning and judgment, which is effectively in the future. A future judgment is just called expectation today. So it's belief. So if that means that if we're able to change the outcome of experience based on our belief, then why can't we change the outcome of events in our life based on our belief?
If you have, I think that this is nearly a scientific proven fact, but if you have 5,000 people meditate at the same time to bring down a crime rate or the murder rate, but the criminals out there don't know this, right? But they're walking down the street and they're in a bad mood, and the meditation's going on, and you have this locality, non-locality entanglement situation that's happening, and the crime rate goes down at the same time that this meditation and the murder rate or whatever. That's exactly what we're talking about, right? That is the observation effect.
Well, maybe let me give you one brass tacks example. So Harvard researchers went to an elementary school with 6-year-old kids. And they told the teacher, we're going to come in here, we're going to give everyone an IQ test. So they gave everyone an IQ test. And they told the teacher that 5 out of her 30 students were genius level, so greater than 140 IQ, so Mensa. So they said to the teacher, okay, you have to sign this contract. You're not going to treat any of them any differently. We're going to observe you. We're going to put cameras throughout the classroom. We're going to make sure, that you're doing everything the right way, and you're not going to treat them any differently, even though you know that they're genius level, these 5 kids. So they observed her for a year, and they came back at the end of the year and they said, okay, we're going to now administer the same test to see if there's any changes to, the intelligence test that everyone's going to take. So they test the kids. And of the 30 kids, 5 students scored genius level scores. Again, Mensa. And lo and behold, the 5 students that tested genius were the same 5 students. And so everyone thought, at least the teacher did, oh, this is exactly as we expected. Except that that wasn't the real subject of the research. The true subject of the research is that they had fooled the teacher. None of the students had tested genius level at the beginning of the year.
Oh.
Just by her very expectation, she treated them no differently.
Right.
And they could confirm that by she actually followed the rules. They confirmed it through the research and through the videotaping. She never treated them any differently, and yet they tested genius at the end of the year because it was a direct result of a change in her expectation of how they would be and how they would test. If we tell our kids, you're an idiot, if we tell them that they're good for nothing, they'll never achieve anything, why should we be surprised when they turn out exactly as we tell them and exactly as we believe? We have such a powerful way to manifest the reality around us. And our voices are the most powerful aspect of that because they're nothing more than a megaphone for our thoughts. They amplify our thoughts. Those thoughts become, words become, thoughts become words, words become deeds, deeds become those actions. And that's exactly the experience that we live around us today. So maybe if we start perceiving the world in a different way, we can actually change the world around us in accordance with that perception that is intentional, that we want.
Why is it that we, not we as in you and I and us and our community, but in general, the media, corporations, countries, state actors, they all know this. And we have the ability right now, for the first time in human history, to reach around the world in a nanosecond, right? We have the ability to do that. Why don't we have a more positive message and make these efforts? Why is it that the fear-based system is still in control? Why isn't there the opposite of that when we know that this can be done? I don't understand that.
Here's why. Because we believe it. So if you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right. My favorite scene in the Empire Strikes Back is when Yoda pulls the X-Fighter out of the swamp, right? And Luke Skywalker, who had failed at doing it only minutes before, comes to Yoda and says, "Master Yoda, I don't believe it." And then Yoda looks at me and says, "That is why you fail."
Right.
Right. We all fall to this. But remember, who's the architect? You are. You are the architect. You created all of this. You wanted to have this experience. You wanted every single experience that you're experiencing. You chose it all. Now, how does that change how you perceive your world? It should empower you. Some people might not hear it as empowering. They may say, "Whoa, I don't want that responsibility." But others of us might actually say, "Whoa, I can't blame anyone but me for what happens." And that is what true spiritual awakening is all about. Because someone who claims to be woke and is still judging everyone else negatively,
right,
is not taking responsibility and blaming everyone else, because the first thing you do when you feel shame is to cast blame on other people. Someone who actually claims to be woke but is still judging ain't really woke at all.
No.
Someone who's truly awakened realizes they are in the creator position. They are one with the universe. It's not a universe as much as it is a you-inverse. The world around you is just the absorption that is the opposite of your reflection reflected back to you. And every experience we have within that, we can choose. That was the best thing that ever happened to us or the worst thing that ever happened to us. And how we react to that is 9/10 of what our experience will be. Because what happens to us in the world is not really what happens to us. It's what we believe happened to us.
Well, why is it? And those are words of wisdom, and I agree with you. But in 1995, when AOL, kickstarted this revolution that we're still going through, that this was supposed to bring the world together, right? And you were able to make friends and communicate with somebody thousands of miles away in real time. And we have watched in just 20 short years, 2 decades, Robert, that it is social media has created divisiveness instead of bringing us together, and how quickly we accepted that role of being in a bubble and no longer trying to learn from somebody else.
So
right?
It's funny you say this. I just finished a new book with a co-author named Michael Ashley. And the name of the book is Neuromind. Not neuro, M-I-N-D, mind, but M-I-N-E-D.
Ooh.
Neurominding. So what is neurominding? Neurominding is what's happening to all of us. It's the thing we've all subjected ourselves to. We're the architect, but we've decided to give up our own sovereignty, our own sort of destinies to something else, right? It's again another illusion, because ultimately we do have total control over it. But big tech right now has created this system that's very dystopian. We are willingly entering into echo chambers of our own conditioning bias. We love it because guess what? These big tech companies have figured out how to become the most successful drug dealer on the planet. You don't even have to deal with cost of goods sold for the drugs. You don't have to have any crops. You don't have to have any people to tend those crops. You don't have to have any land for it, because I can basically give you a stimulus through digital media that does all of those things for me and acts exactly as I want it to be. And you get it and you're like, whoa, I went in this chat room and everyone liked what I had to say. I got a lot of dopamine. Oh my gosh, they like me. Isn't that wonderful? And so they turn on this drug that we all give ourselves. And so what happens is we all get stuck in these echo chambers without even knowing that we're stuck, and we're addicted to these echo chambers. And then we can't even empathize with anyone that has a countervailing viewpoint from our own. We can't see it any other way. And in fact, when we have an election, then everyone is like forlorn. They're like, what? Chagrined over the fact that there are people that don't see the world like I do.
Right. All the way down to the absolute individual level. A singular experience for 7.5 billion people.
Yeah. So this is why managing our own data, and that's one of the, I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Crown Sterling, which is dedicated to data sovereignty so that people can protect themselves. There's a VPN, a quantum VPN, that you could block all these other companies from accessing all this data, because that data is you. And by the way, it's not going to be far away that every one of your life experiences, they're already recorded in something I believe called the Akashic field, Akashic record. But guess what? You'll be able to have it on your own cloud storage. Every memory, every experience you ever had, it's coming. And you'll be able to pass that down to your kids. I mean, this morning I saw a headline from Amazon saying, oh, now you're going to be able to order your Alexa to have the same voice as your dead grandmother.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. Now, in a weird way, I mean, that's got creepy written all over it.
Yes,
right?
It
does. But it was also inevitable. Completely. I mean, nobody should have been shocked to see that.
No, I mean, look, already I'm doing, and there's some cool stuff that comes out of this too. So I'm going to be working with this company that is going to make an avatar of me for my website. And they do a bunch of videos and everything. And then they listen to my podcast that I've done like this and many others, and they put the AI to it. And then it could be an Ask Me Anything. And it will give the same answers that I would likely give on my website. How cool is that?
Yeah, a company.
But also creepy.
Yeah, listen, a company approached me about this, right? The same basic concept. Jimmy, we can have an avatar of you, And your thought, everything, anybody can have a conversation with you, and your responses will be how you would respond. And so they invited me to go look at the technology, and they've already applied. And I thought to myself, that's cool. And here's the thing, and I'm okay with it. Believe it, I'm okay with it, because 50 years from now, my great grandchildren, they would be able to talk to me, right? And ask me questions. And is that wrong? I don't believe that it is. And here's the thing. I talked about this earlier. Back to your point, and the point that I had brought up, we didn't talk to each other, by the way. This is just two minds thinking alike, in that if consciousness is in particles, and if at some point my memories are downloaded onto a chip, that consciousness would be there just because, right? And if I am into not only an avatar, something electronic, but let's say a Boston Dynamics Android robot that eventually would
I don't like those Boston Dynamics things, especially the dog they have. It's
man, it's the creepiest thing.
Man.
Man.
Ugh, that dog is like.
Yeah, I was watching the other day. I just blew through the commercial break and everything else. I just don't want to stop the flow here. I was watching a university in Korea, South Korea, that's got a bunch of these Boston Dynamic dogs that are on patrol on campus, right? Now, here's the thing. You know what they were doing? They were rolling around on their backs and playing, right? And acting like dogs. And you start to look at this, and you start to see them as dogs. It's. I was like, man, this is us, man. This is us. This is our future. But are you okay with that though? Is this like an immortality?
Lots of people ask me what my thoughts on AI. And look, I'm all for the natural world. I like the natural world. We have a pretty amazing place, but let's be clear. I believe this world is a simulation. So, and what's happening right now is that the AI in the simulation, which might actually be us, is becoming sentient. So what's the first thing when it achieves sentience? This reminds me of the Kabbalist. Kabbalist rabbis, they make at a certain stage in their spiritual practice, in ancient times, they would actually make a golem. You know what a golem is? It's a clay man.
Mm-hmm.
It's a clay man. They would fashion a clay man. They would stamp on top of its head the word emet, just like emit, but it's aleph mem tav in Hebrew. And then they would breathe life into this clay man. If you've never seen The Maker on YouTube, just look up YouTube, The Maker. It's about this little clay guy who makes another clay guy. It's got this time clock on it. And then he makes the clay person, and the clay person wakes up and comes to life, and then he disappears and dies, and the whole process starts again, right? So he's like making his friend or his partner or whatever. The point is this. The idea of copying what God did in Genesis to make a clay man and turn that clay man into Adam, right? And then bring sentience to that clay man. Maybe all that's happened is we're just going through a long period of time now so that we, like the Kabbalistic rabbi, are bringing this consciousness to this level, because there's no such thing as artificial in a world and a universe where everything is based on consciousness. I said in the beginning, with no caveats, everything in the universe is conscious. So therefore, even artificial intelligence is part of that same consciousness. To me, that is the architect. That is you. It is each of us in our own experience, in our own avatar. We all have the opportunity to be able to impact this world, to learn, to overcome our shadows, to integrate those shadows into ourselves, to make, as Carl Jung says, it's not about bringing more light to the conscious mind that brings us to enlightenment. What brings enlightenment to us is by bringing the darkness into the conscious By making the darkness and that which was unconscious conscious is how we can ascend to higher orders of awareness. And I fundamentally believe that. So I don't believe that artificial intelligence is truly artificial, because I believe all intelligence is just intelligence. All intelligence is conscious, and that is God.
If you put on some AR goggles, right? And now you are inside of an AR reality that is already inside of right simulated reality. If you enter into that, then you fall asleep and dream, it's like a Russian doll, right? And now you are inside of that, and then you wake up and you experience this AR world that is inside of an AR world. What's the difference between that and what you and I are doing right now? Zero?
I don't know. Just listening to you, I'm tripping balls.
Right. Because it would have to be right.
Well, let me show you something. You see this little thing right here? It's got a little, looks like a little lens inside of it. This is an intraocular lens. It looks like a little black donut on a silicone substrate. That's an intraocular lens. So have you known anyone that's had cataract surgery?
I have, yes.
Yeah. So when you have cataract surgery, this is the type of lens that goes inside your eye. It goes inside your eye. It takes less than 5 minutes to put it in. It's very fast. You don't even feel it. You don't even feel it when they're doing it. It's incredibly painless. So we're now developing, one of my companies is called Cyber. And we developed this lens, and it has a little camera on it.
Shut up. Really?
Mm-hmm.
How does it power itself?
There's a little piece of tape that you put on the eyelid that every time you blink, it captures and harvests energy and uses induction, just like those pads that you put your phone on to charge it. So there's no battery that has to go inside this thing. Now, the reason why we're doing it is because we're going to use it to treat age-related macular degeneration. So people that lose their vision, their central vision, they can't see anything. They have this giant hole in their vision. Right. They can only see out of the periphery. So the lens also has an LCD within it. And we can reposition that center part of their vision to the periphery so that they can live. And by the way, we believe that their brains will modify it so that it comes back to the center of their vision.
And eventually remove it?
You don't have to remove it. No, the camera is what's giving them the central vision, because they've lost the ability to see what's in their center of vision, right? But now we're just taking that center image and putting it to the periphery, so that instead of them having to look like to the side to see something in the center,
right,
they just see it inside their eye. And that's what this technology is.
Now, will you
profound blindness.
Will you be able
to? You can now use that also to record all your memories too.
That was my next question. That was time travel. You took that right out of my frontal lobe.
I just did the quantum eraser on you.
That was pretty amazing. So, and how would that happen? How would the recording happen?
You got a camera in it that's connected to this little piece of tape. As long as you put the tape on your eyelid, you can take it off and it's totally not powered. So you don't have to worry about it at all. And this is why encryption is really important too, so that when it's running, you've got rock solid encryption, cannot be broken. The same that's used on nuclear codes. That's what we created.
Okay.
Called one-time pad, and it's all blockchain. But the thing is the way that it works is you have this piece of tape that, while it's on your eyelid, will power it. It provides it with 100 milliwatts continuous of power.
Right.
And it will be able to power a screen. There's no computer inside of it. No computer. It's just the same thing as like when you cast your iPhone to a television screen, like a monitor.
Right.
Same type thing. But there's also a camera. That camera is then sending the image back so that you can see it on the periphery of your vision. So someone who's lost their central vision can now see. Someone who lost their sight is now able to see again.
That's almost like an episode of Black Mirror.
It is. In fact, after I got the patents issued on that, Netflix made the Black Mirror episode
with the eye camera.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And would you have to have this is how my brain works. Would you have to have like a red light up to let people know that you could possibly in the future be recording as you walk through
that's the purpose of, that's why we designed it with the tape.
Right.
So that whenever you see this tape on someone's eyelid, which you can't really miss, it's very light. You don't feel it much, but you'll see it. That's also telling everybody that, it's on.
It's on. I have the
glasses from Ray-Ban.
I do. I've the Ray-Bans and the Wayfarers. And here's the deal. I got clear of the guilt, knowing that it only records in 30-second spurts, right? You have to refire it up every 30 seconds. So you can't record for 2 hours or broadcast live for 2 hours. That's a serious intrusion of privacy, because there's another issue with this. There's a little blue light that lights up, right? Okay, so when it's recording. So to let people know, you can take a Sharpie, right? and blot it out. And they look like Wayfarers.
Yeah, I've seen them.
It's, like I said,
the thing is that people are just going to get more and more used to this. And there's no way it's not going to stop. But again, I don't see AI or any of these things as being, are we supposed to like stop development of a technology that's going to save millions of people's sight altogether?
Right. Were you surprised about that announcement of the Google employee last week that said their AI is now sentient? And
I mean, I think I've had no doubt in my mind that AI is sentient. I think that there are things that AI is doing right now that is polarizing society. Again, it's all with the lens through which we see the world, right? If I see the world as it's all just reflections of me. And so when I look at the world and I say, I had a bad or untoward experience, what is the universe trying to tell me that is for my benefit that I can learn from? It's not someone else's fault. Why do I keep experiencing the same cycle of samsara over and over and over again? Why do I have the same problem in my relationships, romantic or otherwise, friendships? It's a journey within ourselves. And I think that's what the universe is intended to be. It's a place for us to learn higher order states of consciousness. And we probably look at it and like after we die from here, we're like, damn, put me back in there. Put me back in there. I know I can do better next time, right? So when you look at it in that context, it's nobody else's fault. All the dystopian stuff and realities that we are experiencing are because we're conceiving those things. And what we conceive will be achieved. What we believe will express. And that relationship, I think, is only now being fully grasped by humanity. And not by humanity at large, I think by a certain few. And that few is growing very rapidly. And this is what people call the awakening process. When we become awake to our own nature and how we are impacting the world and how the world is impacting us, that we finally learn and understand that everything that we attract are the things that we had been judging, and that will continue to occur until we no longer judge everything we attracted.
We're on the edge of that. And one of the things, and again, I want to thank you. We're almost out of time, and what a great conversation tonight. We just scratched the surface. The next time you're on with us, we'll pick one subject, right?
Okay.
We'll do the deep dive. But that's when I have a first-time guest on, we have to go, cover so many bases, and we've done.
I got like the orifice check today.
Yeah, exactly right. But it's this. When we have the Sam Harrises of the world, who I have a lot of respect for, I really do, but warning us about AI and general artificial intelligence and the impact that this will have, and that every country in the world is in a race. They're in a race, and the winner, the one that crosses the finish line, all bets are off because everybody else is a loser, and we need to be very careful about this. A lot of people listen to the Sam Harrises of the world? Is Google listening? Is DARPA listening? And is China listening? And that if this is where we are going, should we be worried?
You know, Jesus, when he was here on earth, gave us two great commandments. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, might, mind, and strength. And the second is like unto it, right? Love thy neighbor as thyself. These are two simple commandments in the backdrop of ancient Israel, which was all about the Decalogue, right? You could only take so many steps in Numbers, right? You could only do certain things on the Sabbath. And it was an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And enemies should be killed. They shouldn't be embraced. So Jesus got killed for that, right? I mean, he got hung on the cross, and maybe that was his dharma. That was his choice. That was the experience that he wanted to have. And maybe it was the destiny. I don't believe maybe, I believe absolutely it was. So when we think of it in those terms, we always forget there's another caveat on the end of that after the two great commandments. And it is, judge not lest ye be judged. With that same judgment you cast on others, right? The mote that is in your eye, don't forget about that. What we judge is what we become. I said earlier that our judgments inform the illusion that we experience. And those judgments are what we will continue to attract and experience over and over again. I can't tell you how many times I have, whenever I post a picture of something that is related to Hermeticism, I will often get someone who comments on my social media and they'll say, this is Luciferian, this is satanic.
Right.
What I do, I often go to that person's page and I click on it just to see what I see. And I'm never surprised when usually the profile picture of that person is in fact a demon. If you spot it, that means you got it.
Right. So well said. Robert, thank you so much. When's the new book coming out?
Neuromind is coming out soon. It'll be out in a couple months. It's getting published. I just did a big publishing deal on it. I can't announce that yet, but it will be. And if you haven't seen the TV show I did on Gaia and on Amazon Prime, it's available. It's called Code X. We didn't talk about any of my work in Egypt, but I'll happily come back and talk about all the work in Egypt that I've been doing for the last several years. And it is, it's really mind-blowing stuff. So just look up, you can Google Code X, that's two word, Code X. And by the way, what's the X mean? It's not Code X, one word, it's two words. X is you. And your universe and experience is 1 over X. We're all divisions of number one.
I can't believe we didn't talk about Codex tonight, and which I have seen, and I can't believe we didn't even touch upon that. Also, so we'll bring you back. We can actually just like one episode and pick it apart. But I'm going to Egypt in October.
I saw that with Billy, right?
Yeah, with Billy, and I just did a show last night myself without a guest on the pyramids of Egypt and my concept, my theories, and my ideas behind that. But I'm very excited. This is my first trip to Egypt, and it's something that I know that I've researched is not as much as I could. I can always do more, but no matter what I'm thinking and it's going to be a totally different experience for me. And I'm so looking forward to going and having that connection. I don't know what to expect. I don't.
Well, is it your first time?
Yeah, first time.
Oh my gosh. It's going to definitely change your life.
You know what? You know what the most special part about this? It's my birthday. So on my birthday, we're going to be October 10th is my birthday. And we are going to be in Luxor October 10th. And then we're going to celebrate my birthday on the boat coming back. But that, you know what I mean? It's just like, man,
you know what you have to do on your birthday?
What's that?
If you're going to be in Luxor, make sure you do the balloon ride on your birthday.
Oh, okay.
There's a balloon ride that goes up at 4 a.m. So just ask Billy to set that up for you.
I'm writing it down.
Out of Luxor. It is epic. It's one of the most amazing experiences, and it is the best analogy I can think of as of raising consciousness, what it really can be like, and the joy you experience from that. Life is meant to be experienced and loved. We're here to learn love. We complicate it with so much other stuff, but the one message I could say across all the mathematics, all of the stuff in Egypt I've ever done, we're here to learn one thing and one thing only, and it's how to love and to be loved and receive it.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And RobertEdwardGrant.com. The links, I've lost my voice, and that doesn't happen often. All the links are below. They're over on the website. Robert, thank you so much, man. It was all that and much more tonight.
Thank you. Have a wonderful night. What a pleasure to meet you again. And I'll be happy to come back on again to talk about whatever you'd like.
Let's do it, man. Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
You too, Robert. Thank you so much. And now we've just gone bumper to bumper. I've got to go straight to credits. Thank you, Robert. That was just an incredible conversation. And I had high expectations, and it exceeded everything. Thank you so much. And I want to remind everybody that tomorrow night we've got Ralph Blumenthal of the New York Times here with us. And then, of course, Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What a great show tonight. It was perfect. Absolutely perfect. You guys are so spoiled. I can't say that enough. You guys are spoiled. What a perfect show. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palmer, Renee Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Viteau, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJ Sarah for the Game Changer Network, and this podcast is owned and copyrighted 2022 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll see everybody tomorrow night with Ralph Blumenthal. Thank you, Robert Grant. Incredible. Until tomorrow night, I want everybody to be safe. Go Beckley Tappy.